Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Saraswata Shrimati Divine Grace Abhay Chanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan Ki Jai, Jai Nitai Gopimanande, Hari Hari Bo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, chapter number 2, text number 21. Swayam tvasam yati sayastri triyadisha Swaraja Lakshmyapta samasta kamaha Balim haradbis chiralokapalai Kirita kotye dita pada pitaha Swayam tvasam yati sasastriyadishaha Swaraja Lakshmyapta samasta kamaha Balim haridbis chiralokapalai Kirita kotyedita pada pitaha Swayam tvasam yati sayastriyadishaha Swaraja Lakshmyapta samasta kamaha Balim haridbis chiralokapalai Kirita kotyedita pada pitaha Swayam tvasam yati sayastriyadisha Swaraja Lakshmyapta samasta kamaha Balim haridbis chiralokapalai Swaraja Lakshmyapta samasta kamaha Balim haradbis chiralokapalai Kirita kotyedita pada pitaha Swayam tvasam yati sayastriyadishaha Swaraja Lakshmyapta samasta kamaha Balam haradbis chiralokapalai Kirita kotyedita pada pitaha Word for word Swayam himself to but asamya unique atisaya greater Triadishaha Lord of the Three Swarajya independent supremacy Lakshmi fortune Apta achieved Samasta kamaha all desires Balim worshipping paraphernalia Harad bihi offered by Chiralokapalai by the eternal maintainers of the order of creation Kiritakoti millions of helmets Edita pada pita feet honored by prayers Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: Lord Sri Krishna is the Lord of all kinds of threes and is independently supreme by achievement of all kinds of fortune. He is worshipped by the eternal maintainers of the creation, who offer Him the paraphernalia of worship by touching their millions of helmets to His feet. Purport: Lord Shri Krishna is so mild and merciful as described in the above verses, and yet He is the Lord of all kinds of threes. He is the Supreme Lord of the three worlds, the three qualities of material nature, and the three Purushas, Karana Dakashayi, Garbha Dakashayi, and Shira Dakashayi, Vishnu. There are innumerable universes, and in each and every universe there are different manifestations of Brahma, Vishnu, and Rudra. Besides that, there is the Sheshamurti who bears all the universes on his hoods. And Lord Krishna is the Lord of all of them. As the incarnation of Manu, He is the original source of all Manus in innumerable universes. Each universe has manifestations of 504,000 Manus. He is the Lord of the three principal potencies, namely Chit Shakti, Maya Shakti, and Tatashta Shakti. And He is the complete master of 6 kinds of fortune: wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. There is none who can excel Him in any matter of enjoyment, and certainly there is no one greater than Him. No one is equal to or greater than Him. It is the duty of everyone, whoever and wherever one may be, to surrender completely unto Him. It is not wonderful, therefore, that all the transcendental controllers surrender to Him and make all offerings of worship. Om Jnanatimurandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So translation, repeat again. Lord Shri Krishna is the Lord of all kinds of threes and is independently supreme by achievement of all kinds of fortune. He is worshipped by the eternal maintainers of the creation, who offer Him the paraphernalia of worship by touching their millions of helmets to His feet. So Uddhava is practically now churning the nectar of remembrance of Lord Krishna. We already know that he is in his ecstatic emotions remembering the Lord and simultaneously experiencing that ecstasy of remembering the Lord and being in His association, but at the same time lamenting having not achieved the association of the Lord at present. Because the Lord has already at this particular point in time had already gone back to His abode or wound up His manifest pastimes, and Uddhava seemingly was left behind. But the Lord had a specific purpose for Uddhava, that He taught Uddhava what is known as Uddhava Gita in the 11th canto, just so that he can go to Naranarayan Ashram and Badrika Ashram and teach there whatever he had learned from the Lord. But it's quite interesting that Uddhava is giving up Krishna's association to go and associate with Krishna in another manifestation as Naranarayan Rishi. But you can see here, something I was thinking about in this particular chapter is that there's a question often that comes up, is that when we attain our constitutional position, our rasa with the Lord, do we desire to change? You can see here that although Uddhava is going to see the Lord in his other manifestation as Narayana Rishi, still he's hankering and lamenting the lack of the association of the Lord in his form as Lord Krishna. So Uddhava is feeling that acute pain of not having the same association of the Lord as Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, although he's going to go and meet Narayana Rishi. That loving exchange won't be the same. Because the Lord appears in different forms to associate with the devotees according to their particular rasa. Therefore, he has innumerable forms and innumerable devotees. So, Uddhava, he's showing his specific love for the Lord as being a personal associate of the Lord in Dwarka. And yesterday we saw how Uddhava, he's explaining his feelings of separation from the Lord from the perspective of, just see all the soldiers on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Although I was with the Lord the whole time throughout his pastimes in Dwarka, just see the soldiers on the battlefield of Kurukshetra who just saw him on the battlefield, immediately attained his abode in his association. Just see how unfortunate I am that I don't have the association of the Lord. I have not gone back with him into his personal association. So this whole section here, after having seen the beauty of the Lord, Uddhava is now expressing his lamentation, expressing his ecstatic emotions. Not the gross, material, mundane lamentation that we have achieved something and then naturally we'll lose it due to the nature of the material world. This lamentation is just another form of ecstatic symptoms. Because separation from the Lord is non-different from meeting with Him. It's a more intense form of meeting with the Lord, because one constantly remembers Krishna in this form, more intensely awaiting His union. So here in previous sloka we saw of how Uddhava is seeing that they achieved the abode of the Lord just by seeing Him and achieving the arrows of Arjuna. But look at me, I am still stuck here because I don't have the association of the Lord. In this verse, he's leading up to the next verse. This is a lead up to tomorrow's verse, because simultaneously, as Uddhava is experiencing the ecstatic emotions of separation from the Lord, like as we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, these inconceivable emotions for those on the neophyte platform such as myself, they constantly churn and produce so much taste and so much emotion, so much reciprocation between the Lord and the devotee, that constantly the devotee feels like such a clashing within the heart between different emotions. So here, to express himself, Uddhava is explaining the opulence of the Lord as Triyadish. And we hear of this Lord of the Threes a lot when we read Chaitanya Charitamrita. I believe it's the conversation between Rupa Goswami and Lord Chaitanya, where Lord Chaitanya is explaining how Lord Krishna is the Lord of Threes. And in that section, Prabhupada's pretty much summarized in his purport that the Lord is the Lord of Threes, and these threes are like the three worlds. What are the three worlds? Can you remember? What are the three worlds? Yes. So higher, lower and middle planetary systems. Bhur, Bhuva, Swa also. Correct. It's coming to that point here. Prabhupada mentions. Oh, Prabhupada didn't go into that. Yeah, so he is also the Lord of Golok. But that's mentioned here as Chit Shakti, Maya Shakti and Tatashta Shakti. He's also the Lord of Golok, Mathura, he's Vrindavan, Mathura and Dwarka. He's the Lord of those three abodes as well. The three qualities of material nature are Rajagun, Sattvagun and Tamagun. The three Purushas, Kanadakashaya Vishnu, Garbhadakashaya Vishnu and Shirdakashaya Vishnu. He is the master of them as well. And it's mentioned that in each universe there are guna avatars who take care of all three gunas, Brahma, Vishnu and Rudra, and of them he is their master as well. And Prabhupada's going outside of the universes. Shesha has them sitting on his hoods like mustard seeds. They're sitting on Shesha Nag's hoods. And he is the master of Shesha Nag, although he's bearing all the universes on his head and he's glorifying the Lord for millions and millions and millions of yugas. still he has not come to the end of the glories of the Lord. And that Lord is Lord Krishna, his master. And then he's saying, Prabhupada is saying, he is the Lord of Manu. He is the original source of Manu. So Prabhupada is explaining the different avatars, Shakya Vesha Manvantara, then you've got the other types of avatars like Prabhav, Swayam Prakash, all of these other types that are mentioned in detail. So Prabhupada starts this purport by saying Krishna is so mild and merciful as described in the above verses, and yet he is the Lord of all kinds of threes. So the oftentimes when we think of opulence, when we think of power, we often neglect the emotional or the personal aspect behind the Lord. Because we come from a background where we are sort of, asking the Lord for things. You put a couple of coins in the hundi and expect the Lord to give something in return. That give and take principle is there. That, okay, yeah, we recognize you as the Supreme, so therefore we are giving this to you, so therefore you should give something back to us. But what people generally lack understanding of is the personality of Lord Krishna. How he's Bhakta Vatsala. He's extremely merciful and compassionate to the devotees. And he's also Achyuta, that he never fails in carrying out the promises of his devotees, in protecting his devotees. So all of these minute but very important aspects of the Lord in terms of his qualities, they're generally not seen when you see the grandeur and opulence of the Lord from a material point of view. Of course, the qualities of the Lord are meditated upon by those who worship the Lord in Aishwarya Bhav. They do understand the Lord's mercy. Like for example, Lord Ramachandra, although he exhibited that quality of being the Purusha and the master and the ruler and protector, all of his devotees, they all appreciated his quality of being very soft, calm and mild in that nature, and because of his dealings with his devotees. And especially when he shows his own compassionate nature, especially when they're finally found where Lord Ram's consort, Mother Sita, is in Lanka. And they reach the shore of the Indian Ocean. And as they're about to cross over the Indian Ocean, having built the bridge, they're coming together, building their strategy. And it's at that time that Sugriva, Hanuman, Jambavan and Lord Krishna, they saw a couple of Rakshasas coming from overseas. They were flying through the sky from Lanka, reaching that particular place that they had camped. And it happened to be Vibhishan and his personal associates. And Vibhishan approached the Lord and immediately paid obeisances to the Lord. And before he could get any closer to the Lord, Sugriva and Hanuman came before the Lord and explained that these Rakshasas are coming. And Sugriva immediately told the Lord, we should not trust them. They could be spies sent by they be spies sent by Ravana from the other side of the ocean. So we must not trust them immediately. And so then Lord Ram then asked Hanuman that, what is your taking in this matter? Because you see, it's very interesting. Just as Uddhava was giving counsel to Lord Krishna, Lord Ram was also taking counsel a lot from Hanuman. So then he asked Hanuman, so my dear Hanuman, what is it that we should do? He said, we should first see what his motives are and understand where he's coming from, and then make a decision. And Lord Ram immediately accepted, yes, those who come and take my shelter, it is guaranteed that I will never let them go. I'll give them all protection. If he's come to take my shelter, then once we defeat Ravan, I'll give him the throne. I'll give him Lanka's throne. He'll become the king. And so then Sugriva immediately asked, so then what will happen if Ravana comes and takes your shelter? What will you give him? He said, I'll give Ayodhya. I don't need a place to rule. I can give him Ayodhya. So the Lord's nature is that he's extremely compassionate. He's not concerned about his opulences. Generally, from our material point of view, is that when we get opulences, we hanker for it, we hoard it, and we keep it to ourselves. And it's nothing for anybody, just for me. And I'll display this opulence to bring you under my control. I'll display these opulences to be able to enjoy. But the Lord is completely beyond that concept of enjoyment. To the extent that He's willing to even give up His name and fame to protect His devotee, just like as He protected Arjuna on the battlefield from Bhishma Dev. So the Lord is not concerned about all of these so-called opulences, although He's full of them. He's stealing in Braja, when He's stealing the gopis' butter and yogurt. From a material point of view, it's like a infamy. It's completely a negative aspect of the Lord. But actually, although the Lord is performing such pastimes, putting Himself in a so-called immoral position to give the gopis more and more enjoyment in His association, He's glorified more and more by His devotees. And His fame increases when actually it should decrease from a material perspective. But it doesn't, because the Lord's activities are absolute. His killing of demons and His saving and protecting of devotees are same on the absolute platform. It appears that Him protecting the devotees gives Him more fame. And at the same time gives Him infamy, being partial. But no, because His activities of killing the demons gives them the same opportunity of service as the devotees have. So in that way the Lord's opulences continually increase. But the Lord's not so much concerned about those things. He's more concerned about His devotees and His loving relationship with His devotees. It's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I always remember this. I'll explain the pastime. When Lord Jagannath had entered the Gundicha temple, after having performed the one side of the Rath before going for the return Rath back to Jagannath Puri, back to the temple, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates had camped outside in the gardens. And that particular time, Lakshmi Devi and her associates appeared. And they started chastising Jagannath's servants, saying, where is your Lord Jagannath? He's left for such a long time without telling the goddess of fortune, our master Lakshmi Devi. Where is he? We are here to bring him back. And so Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing the pastime that they were enacting, he then he was relishing it. He was with his devotees in the garden while they were resting from the kirtan. And so then Srivas Thakur took the opportunity to jump up and say, just see how opulent my goddess of fortune, my Lakshmi Devi is. That just see her opulence, just see the opulence of Vaikuntha Loka. How can Vrindavan, how can how her pastures compare to this? And immediately Swarup Damodar intervened and started speaking about the glories of Vrindavan. To the extent that the opulences, the jewels, the touchstones that are most valuable, that are, embedded in the palaces of Dwarka, they are just simply jewels that are manifested at the bottom of the trees in Golok Dham. Those jewels are just simply at the feet of the Kalpaviksha trees. They are just simply ornaments for the Dham, Vrindavan Dham. The opulences of Vrindavan Dham are so great that what we consider as the greatest opulences of Dwarka are considered to be just ordinary things in Vrindavan Dham. In Vrindavan Dham, the opulences of the Lord are so great that the devotees are so much attached to the Lord in loving relationship, loving devotional service with the Lord. So, I remember when I was in Mayapur, I think it was many years ago, I remember seeing someone was sweeping in, I think it was the Conch building. They were sweeping there. And when I saw them sweeping, I immediately remembered that in the spiritual world, the goddesses of fortune are constantly cleaning the Lord's abode, trying to get rid of dust. But the dust is not really there. There's no such thing as dust there. From our perspective, always clean. But their consciousness is so absorbed in serving the Lord that they're willing to take up any service just to please the Lord. Their mood is, we are made servants of the Lord, we must keep this place clean. So the opulences of the Lord are there, but they're used in connection with the Lord, in their loving relationship with the Lord. That's the main point. That, yeah, the Lord is here, He is the Lord of threes. In this material world, He is the Lord of everyone. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda, Sarva Karana Karanam. There's no one greater than or equal to Him. He is the cause of all causes, and there's no other cause than Him. In this material world, we see that. But in the spiritual world, what's happening? Lord Krishna has come under the control of His devotees. He's completely become subjugated by their love for Him. So it's that Lord that Uddhava is remembering. That although the Lord is the Lord of all threes, and He's independently supreme by achievement of all kinds of fortune, He's Sad Aishwarya Purna, that He possesses these six opulences, Aishwaryasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yashasya Jnana Vairagyasya Sannam Bhaga Itingana, that He is full of the six kinds of fortune: wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge and renunciation. But although He is full of these things, as you'll see in tomorrow's verse, He voluntarily becomes subordinate to His devotees. Although He is the Lord of everything, He simply submits Himself to Ugrasen, gives Himself up to Ugrasen, puts Ugrasen, actually in fact, after killing Kamsa, He tells that because we are the Yadus, we cannot take the throne, so therefore I will reinstate Ugrasen on the throne as the king of the Yadus. And He serves Ugrasen. Whatever requires to be done is presented before Ugrasen, and then He performs it. But that Supreme Lord is the controller of all the universes. How is it possible? So the Lord performs these pastimes, but unfortunately without transcendent knowledge, avajananti mam mudha manushim tanum ashritaha, that they start to think the Lord as an ordinary living entity. But the Lord is just simply there to give pleasure to the devotees and to expand His pastime so that everyone there are able to perceive or come in contact with the devotees to be able to perceive the pastimes and attain His association once again. So He's worshipped by the eternal maintainers of creation who offer Him the paraphernalia of worship by touching their millions of helmets to His feet. So we see in the innumerable pastimes of the Lord that when Lord Brahma came and he was bewildered by the Lord, he paid obeisances to the Lord's feet, his helmet touching the Lord's feet. He paid it like a gold, he looked like a golden rod paying his dandavats. His body is golden, his helmet was golden, and it was all at the lotus feet of the Lord. When Indra came and made a mistake, he paid obeisances, his helmet touching the Lord's lotus feet. And the significance behind the Lord's servant's helmet touching the Lord's feet is that the helmet represents the position. That the king will sit on the throne with the helmet on his head. You'll see in the pastimes of Dhruva and Prahlad Maharaj, when they're enthroned and given the kingship, that you'll see Brahma coming and putting the helmet on their heads, signifying that they're now the emperor. That person wearing the helmet is now the emperor. But we see in the second canto early on that those kings who do not bow down to the Lord, their helmets are simply a burden on their head, nothing more. It's simply a position that they should use to serve the Lord, because they're known as Naradeva. They're the representatives of the Lord, maintaining the Palana Shakti, like Ishwara Prabhu was mentioning, the epitome or the topmost manifestation of a person performing the duty as a king is Prithu Maharaj. He represents that Palana Shakti. Although the Lord comes Himself and shows that to the unlimited degree, but He sends Prithu Maharaj to show that example of what it means to be a king. And later on you see the example of Maharaj Gaya as well. That they maintain their citizens, their praja, as if they were the father. And all the citizens saw them as their father, and they would see the praja as their children and maintain them accordingly. So they are then subordinate to the Lord. Like for example, Ambrish Maharaj, his whole understanding or his whole mood was that he was not the king, that the Lord was the king and that he was His servant. You must have heard of Mukunda in the Mukunda Mala Stotra. Mukunda Maharaj, he simply thought the Lord as the king. He would serve the Lord, and when the neighboring kingdom would come and attack, while he's serving the Lord, his servants would come and tell, and the ministers say, we're coming under attack. And he would say, that's fine, I'm in the middle of my service, I'll deal with it after. And being the servant of the Lord, he would continue his service. And on the battlefield, what would happen is that the enemy would be completely annihilated. By the time the king came out to find out what's happening, the minister said that, "My dear Lord, it's already been done. It's great work you have done. But I've been sitting inside performing puja." What had happened is the Lord had appeared in the disguise as the king and had annihilated the opposing army while his servant was continuing to worship him. In other situations, in Jagannath Puri, the king of Orissa would come before the Lord and recite everything, all of the things that had happened in the kingdom before Jagannath. Why? Because the Gajapati understood, the king of Orissa understood that actually I'm not the king, Lord Jagannath is the king. I am just simply in this position to assist as an instrument of pleasure for the Lord. So the mood is like that. So the helmet is simply a burden if the mood is not there. It is just simply going to weigh on your head to the extent the arrogance and pride will just simply pull you down. An example of that is Maharaj, I think it's Maharaj Nabi. Nabi, no. Say it again? Vena is there? No. There was a king that was qualified to become Indra. I forgot his name. Nahusha, I think. Nahusha. And he became king of Indralok because of his pious activities. Because at that particular time, Indra became a pig. He had been cursed to become a pig. So the post of Indra was empty. Indra, anyway. So that Nahusha then became Indra. Because of his piety, the demigods saw him as qualified to take that position until Indra finished his period of punishment. So then what had happened was that Nahusha attained the throne and he was ruling peacefully. And when it's mentioned, Radheshyam Prabhu mentions very funny, he'd go, they ask him, please come and sit on the throne. He'd come very meek, mild, and touch the throne to his head and touch everyone's lotus feet and touch the crown to his head, and then he would very carefully sit on the throne and everything like that. And he would treat everyone nicely, and over a period of time, the position got to him. That he became so proud and arrogant that when he saw Sachi, the wife of Indra, he immediately desired to enjoy her and ask her to sit on the throne with him. To the extent that he cursed, so fast forwarding, he was cursed by the sages when he offended them. So that position was simply nothing but a burden for him, and it caused his downfall. To the extent that he became a snake, and it was only until Bhima and Yudhishthira appeared where he was, that he was able to be liberated. So this position is just simply a burden if it's not surrendered to the Lord's lotus feet and taken up simply for the Lord's pleasure. That I am just simply a representative. I am representing you, Gopinath, and this service that I am performing is not simply for me to exhibit my Ishvara Bhava, rather it is meant for me to assist and facilitate devotees. Because the whole idea behind ISKCON as an institution is so that standards are set and that devotees have opportunities for service. And more importantly, that this preaching movement continues going forward. Therefore it's required organization and intelligence. Just so everyone is engaged properly with the idea that we are engaged in a preaching movement meant to expand the glories of the Lord. That is the purpose of ISKCON, to give association to devotees and to expand it so that there's many more devotees to give association to. So if you then put your own agenda or your own person in the light, then it's completely ruins the whole mood. It ruins the whole preaching movement. Therefore, Prabhupada's mood was always to put Krishna forward. Prabhupada's mood was always Krishna forward. Krishna is the central point. And therefore, Prabhupada was extremely successful in teaching us the example of how to keep Krishna in the center. So, yeah, you'll see Indra putting his head at Krishna's lotus feet, but later on, that same Indra will fight with Krishna for the Parijata flower. Again, misuse of his helmet, misuse of his position. And then we hear the final example of how In Chaitanya Charitamrita it's mentioned of how Brahma came to visit Lord Vishnu. And he came to the doorkeepers and he told the doorkeepers, hey, look, I'm here to see Lord Vishnu, my Lord. Okay, 1 second. Who are you? Tell him that Brahma has come. And so then these two doorkeepers went inside and told Lord Vishnu, my dear Lord, there's one guest for you. He says he is Lord Brahma. And Lord Vishnu is then thinking, go and ask him which Lord Brahma he is. And so the gatekeepers came and asked this particular, our Chatur Mukha Brahma, the four-headed Brahma, which Brahma are you? And this Brahma is thinking, what? Which Brahma? What are you talking about? And so then he was granted audience of the Lord. And when he came before the Lord, he offered his prayers, his dandavats, submitted his, report. In such and such universe, this such and such is happening, creation's going well, my Lord. But one question I have, why did you ask me which Brahma I am? And immediately the Lord, just by his desire, manifested all the opportunities for Brahmas of all the different universes to appear. And suddenly Brahma saw Brahmas with so many heads appearing, millions and billions of heads appearing. And it's mentioned in that particular scene that when all these Brahmas paid obeisances, their helmets clanged together to make such a loud noise. So they're offering their obeisances to the Lord because the Lord is the supreme and they are just simply subordinate. So it's a very nice verse. It's positioned in such a nice way for relishing the Lord's pastimes, and especially for Uddhava to bring out that ecstatic emotion. Because if this verse isn't here, the next verse doesn't completely bring out that ecstatic separation that he's experiencing of the Lord. So simultaneously he's experiencing the greatness of the Lord, and then at the same time understanding the Lord's position and how he subordinated himself below Ugrasena. So it's a very nice verse. It helps us remember the position of the Lord as he's Ishvara Parama Krishna, the Supreme Lord, but at the same time understand how Krishna is so mild and merciful in his pastimes. Okay, so I'll end here. We're over time. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Hari.